The curvy crunch stitch may seem like a simplistic crochet stitch pattern, but behind the curves you will find some very interesting and complex processes. In this video, I break down this complexity into easy-to-follow steps. The companion pattern is available by following the link in the description below. We are going to form a slip knot, and we're going to chain 52. I'll meet you when I get there. Now we're going to begin the shaping. So we're going to count off to the third chain, and in the third chain we're going to begin the decreases. We're going to insert our hook, pull up a loop. Then in the very next chain we're going to insert and pull up a loop. So we have 3 loops on hook. We're going to yarn over and pull through all 3. That's a single crochet decrease, which causes a shape at the bottom of the curve. The chain 2 at the beginning that we skipped will count as a half double crochet. So now we begin to work the crunch stitch. We're going to yarn over, insert our hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop, 3 loops on hook, yarn over and pull through all 3. We've just done a half double crochet. In the next stitch, we're going to insert our hook, and we have 2 loops on the hook, pull through all loops. That is a slip stitch. Yarn over the hook, insert the hook, pull up a loop, 3 loops on hook, yarn over, pull through all 3, and a slip stitch. Insert, yarn over, and pull through everything. So together, the half double crochet and the slip stitch make a crunch stitch. So we're going to work a third crunch stitch. First the half double crochet portion, and then the slip stitch. So we have just worked an upward slope plus our edge stitches. Now we're going to increase, and an increase is done in this pattern is just by chaining 1. That was it. So now we're going to do 3 more crunch stitches. So half double crochet and a slip stitch, and a slip stitch to complete the first one, half double crochet, slip stitch to complete the second one, a half double crochet, and a slip stitch to complete the third one. Now I'm going to increase again. Chain 1. Now we're working the downward slope. See how it's starting to shape? That's the upper part of the upper curve. Now we're coming on a downward slope. So we're going to work another crunch stitch, a second crunch stitch, and we're going to begin a third crunch stitch just like we've been doing. We're going to do the half double crochet, but instead of doing a slip stitch, we're going to insert our hook, pull up a loop, insert our hook in the next stitch, pull up a loop. So we have 3 loops on hook and work a single crochet 2 together. Now we're going to work 2 and a half more, or the first half of the third one. So half double crochet, slip stitch, half double crochet, slip stitch, and the first half of the third one, which makes it 2 and a half. So there's the half double crochet. Once again, instead of a slip stitch, we're going to work a single crochet 2 together over the next 2 stitches. By pulling up a loop in each of those stitches, 3 loops on hook, yarn over, pull through all 3. That turns this corner going back into an upward slope. On the upward slope, we do 3 full crunch stitches. Now we're at the top again. So we chain 1 to increase. Then we do 3 whole across again. Now we've got to make that slip stitch to finish it. Okay, now we do another increase, which turns it back to going downward. So we went up, across, now we're coming down. And this is our final edge that we have to complete. So just like all downward, we're going to work 2.5 crunch stitches. We have 5 chains remaining. So we're going to first insert our hook in the next one and slip stitch it. Then we're going to work 1 more half double crochet in the next one. Now we have 3 remaining. What these extra stitches here did was help tie this edge down because it always folds over a little bit. So now we have to just finish our ending. And we are going to work a single crochet 2 together over the next 2 stitches. In the last stitch, we're going to work a half double crochet. And that concludes our row 1. After you finish the first row, you want to double check and lay it out and make sure your curves are all in the right place. Our increases create the top of the curve, our decreases create the dips, and then our edge stitches create the little tabs on the end. So the foundation row is a shaping row. The shaping row will be worked every other row. However, it's how you begin and end the rows that are going to keep these edges straight. So there's 2 variations of the shaping row, and there are 2 variations of the rows in between. So it's a 4-row repeat. It's a really good idea to mark that end. Since every other row is a shaping row, when I start on this edge, I know that I'm going to be shaping it. So we're ready to begin row 2. And how you begin it is you chain 1, turn, and at the base of the chain, which belongs to that first stitch, we're going to work a single crochet. It just makes this edge more stable. Then in the very next stitch, we're going to work a half double crochet, and in the next one, a slip stitch. And you're going to continue to alternate a half double crochet and a slip stitch all the way along this edge. But I want to point out one thing that you'll find when we get up toward that increase, and we're almost there. In that chain 1, there it is, okay? So we're going to do a slip stitch into this one. The next stitch up is a half double crochet, and we're going to do a half double crochet into that stitch. You always have to treat the chain 1 as if it was another stitch, and it is. And then in the next stitch, we're going to work a slip stitch. And so you're just going to go across this entire row like this. But I want to point out something. If you're used to thinking about crunch stitches, you may not have noticed it, but when you think about crunch stitches are usually worked where the half double crochet is worked in a slip stitch and the slip stitch is worked in a half double crochet of the row below. But once you hit that increase, you're going to find that you're slip stitching into a slip stitch and you're half double crocheting into a half double crochet, and it will reverse when you hit the next increase. It also occurs, now this one's a half double crochet here, and here we're going into a slip stitch into that chain 1, and that reverses it back, so it goes back to half double crochet into a slip stitch and a slip stitch into a half double crochet. But this occurrence where it reverses will occur at the tops and at the bottoms, because every time you hit an increase or a decrease, it's going to change the the series of the alternating stitches. But just pointing that out because if you're used to crunch stitches being a certain way, this isn't how it happens. So now I'm going to continue all the way across this row because I want to show you how to get to the end. But it works out perfectly going like this. Now when you get to the end of row 2, you're going to end with a slip stitch and then a half double crochet in that second to the end stitch. And if you recall, this chain 2 at this end counts as a half double crochet. So we still need to go into that last stitch, and instead of working a slip stitch, we're going to end it with a single crochet on the end. That complements what we did on this end with putting a single crochet as the first stitch. Okay, we're going to chain 1 and turn. Once again, that chain 1 belongs to this very first stitch. So I'm going to put another single crochet into that stitch. Now, I need to make a decrease, but there's so many different ways to do decreases, it's amazing. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to skip this stitch because my pattern is with the half double crochet. So I am going to find the next stitch, which is a slip stitch in the row below, and work my half double crochet and then a slip stitch into the next stitch. These last 2 stitches should not count as a crunch stitch because those are part of the end stitches. This shaping row is identical to the foundation shaping row with 2 exceptions: how it begins and how it ends, and the other exception is that you're working under both loops of a stitch instead of in the back of a chain. That's the only difference. The whole part in here with all the curve shaping is identical. We'll review it quickly on this row so you get the whole picture. We've done our beginning edge stitches, and now we're going to continue up the slope working 3 full crunch stitches and increase, which is a chain 1, 3 full crunch stitches across the top and increase, which is a chain 1. The downward slope we do 2.5 crunch stitches and then a single crochet 2 together, 2.5 across the bottom and a single crochet 2 together decrease, and then we're back into upward slope across the top just like over here, and then coming down here we do 2.5 crunch stitches. Then I'll join you then so I can show you how to do the end stitches. We're just about finished with row 3, and we've just finished our 2.5 crunch stitches coming down that last side. In addition to that, what we need to do is place a slip stitch in the next stitch and 1 half double crochet in the next. We're going to skip this stitch and treat it as a decrease, and then in the very final stitch we're going to work a single crochet. So chain 2 and turn. This row has no increases or decreases, and the chain 2 represents a half double crochet in that very first stitch, and that puts us right in pattern where we would be doing a slip stitch in the top of the half double crochet in the row below. So we're going to slip stitch, then a half double crochet in the next stitch and a slip stitch in the next. And you're just going to continue alternating half double crochets and slip stitches, and when you get to the chain 1 increase, you want to make sure that you work into that stitch 2, and you go all the way to the end, and I'll meet you to show you how to do the end stitches on this one. So here I'm doing my slip stitch, and then in that very last stitch, which is that single crochet, I'm going to end it just like I began the row with a half double crochet into that stitch. I've removed the last stitch here so that I can show you how to properly change your color. The last stitch here is a half double crochet, so I'm going to work my half double crochet, except I'm not going to pull my end loop through it yet, okay? Because this is where I'm going to add my new color before I go on. So whatever the stitch is, whether it's a single crochet or whatever, I'm going to pick up both the old and the new yarn and pull this through. Now I've cut the old yarn already, so I'm going to pull this end right through like that. And then I'm going to pick up both my feeder yarn and my yarn tail, and I'm going to work my next stitch, which is the beginning of row 5. And that is a half double crochet, which is represented by a chain 2. So I'm working a chain 2, and I'm going to pull this end through, and that locks that one down. But before I go on, I'm going to thread up my yarn tail, and I'm going to weave this end in. Row 5 is a shaping row, and we've already started it. And the next stitch is a decrease, and it's a single crochet decrease. So we're going to pull up a loop, pull up a second loop, yarn over and pull through all 3. That's what we would normally do. But because we're changing our colors, we're going to add a special technique that gets rid of this little bar back here and makes it a lot neater. Insert your hook, pull up a loop in the first stitch, yarn over the hook, then insert your hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through all 4 loops on hook. By yarning over, you lift that bar and put it up as part of the stitch. You only have to do that when you're doing a decrease, when you're changing your color. Then into the next stitch and a slip stitch. Now we started our crunch stitches up the side, and in this case I'm going to do a single crochet 2 together again right there, and I'm going to end it with a half double crochet in the end stitch. And that is row 5. Now, from this point on, you go back to row 2 and you repeat row 2, 3, 4, and 5. So here's our beautiful piece with our straight edges. As you work the pattern, I move my marker up every time I do pattern row 5. That way, I don't lose track of where I am. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Please take a moment to subscribe and ring the bell to receive notifications of upcoming videos and events. Happy crocheting!